So the meeting is being recorded. I will now do roll call. Please say present when I call your name. Casey Bliley.
Present. Did you get that?
Maybe
Present.
it's me. I'm not hearing anybody else. Is it me? Okay.
We can hear you.
I'm hearing everybody just fine, Hannah.
Everybody, this is Will. I'm texting Hannah to tell her.
I got it. I got
Okay.
it. Thanks. Everybody just kept on giving me thumbs up, and I was like, great. I'm just gonna keep on talking. Okay, Casey Bliley, you said here, right? Catherine Bond? Not here. Taylor Brown?
Present.
Sam Brumberg? Jenica Cass? Oh, great. Sam Brumberg.
Apologies for my tardiness.
You're just in time. I just called your name.
I am here.
Thank you. Jenica Casper?
Present.
Will Cleveland?
Here.
Kendall Crawford?
Present.
Bill Greenleaf? Kirk Johnson?
Good afternoon.
Susan Cruz?
Present.
Sarah Narette? Tony Ostrowski?
Present.
Will Reisinger?
Hey, Hannah, I'm here.
Thanks. And John Warren? As a note, Sam Towell is no longer with the OAG's office, and he emailed Carrie and I saying that since his position was tied to his membership of the board was tied to his position at the AG's office, he's resigned his position from the board. So we thanked him for his service, but that's why I didn't call his name. Anyway, so the purpose of this meeting is to do an update on the stakeholder outreach and then receive an update on the RFP. I don't think this is going to take the full 2 hours that we have allocated for this, but we'll just see how it goes. So first off, general update on the work of the board and CISA. Carrie and Grant, I don't know if you want to add anything right now, or if I should just provide a general update at this point.
We could probably get into it in the third line on the agenda, Hannah.
Okay. So as a general update, I know that we had a bunch of meetings last week. For those of you who could make it, we had the consultation with the IOUs and then a meeting regarding a potential green bank in Virginia. If anybody has any follow-up questions or kind of follow-up comments or advice that they want to send to me, that would be great. Always appreciate it. And I know that CISA has been working on the RFP. And then in addition, we've been doing some stakeholder outreach performed by the board, and Carrie and I have received some results of that outreach. We thought we would just summarize it here today, and then also provide an opportunity for those who have performed outreach but may have not had a chance to kind of consolidate it and send it to me and Carrie to provide that today at the meeting.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Sam.
I apologize for interrupting. one other note before we move into the specifics of stakeholder outreach. I would just note for the board that the Policy and Regulatory Committee resolved to send a letter to the administration supporting the administration's plans in regard to the funding of this board's work on LMI solar and also supporting the Green Bank proposal generally. Because the board has not expressed any opinions on what the Green Bank should look like or any sort of, the operations or governance of the bank, our statements are simply generic and supportive of the bank in concept.
Great. Thank you, Sam. And can we circulate that to the full board as well?
Yes, I'm happy to circulate it. It's probably going to go out this week electronically, and I'll make sure the board receives a copy. It's very benign and generic in its current form.
Great. I think that's great news. And I think depending on how the board feels, I'd love to include it in our annual report. And maybe at that point, even vote to adopt it and, kind of say yes, and the full board supports it. But we can talk about that once the rest of the board has seen it. Before we continue, any other business anybody else wants to bring up? Okay. Hearing none, we can get into the stakeholder outreach. Carrie, do you want to start with some of the outreach that we received from Janica?
Sure. I have this up in front of me and I can summarize it. And Jonica, if you want to add in for anything else in terms of adding your own perspective or detail, I welcome that as well. So Jonica actually did reach out to all of the weatherization service providers that are in the top 5 communities that we are considering as part of the marketing component of the LMI solar pilot program, and looked into how many households have been served since 2016. And these are specifically single family households. And then also the number of single family households that are on a wait list. And we have specific numbers for Augusta County being the locality that has the largest number of single family households that have been served by Community Housing Partners, the service provider in that district. And that's 133 households since 2016. The next greatest numbers represented in Wise County, served by Appalachian Community Action. And that is 44 households that have been served since 2016. Followed by Shenandoah County, 36 households served. And again, these are just single family. So remember, the weatherization provider also provides services for multifamily households as well. The next is City of Waynesboro at 26 single family households. And then the City of Franklin has had 7 households served since 2016. And that's through the weatherization service provider Project Homes. Each of those, we also have waitlist numbers. I'm not going to go through the details of those numbers, but it's sort of in probably reverse order in terms of the number of households that are on the wait list. And in some of those, I should say, Jonica caveated that Project Homes for the City of Franklin, that data really only goes back to 2019. Jonica, would you like to add anything else?
Project Homes did say with more digging, they could go back into Hancock and try to find the additional, to take it back to 2016. But I actually thought this data would give you enough information if you wanted them to dig back. My guess is they've served more, and you could do it proportionally by year to get an idea. And the other disclaimer is you have no concept of the viability of the roof structures or the shading and the viability of solar. But this, you at least know it would meet the threshold of energy savings for the ones already weatherized, and the ones on the waiting list, you could have a guarantee that it would meet the energy standards once they are weatherized.
And so just to kind of summarize this in terms of importance, I mean, Jonica and Carrie, would you say that these numbers are helpful because they indicate people who have already received weatherization services and would be in the pipeline to now get solar if their roof would allow for it? Is that?
Yes, it's really no indication of their interest. That it just says they've had it touched by a weatherization provider. The wait list would simply mean they're scheduled in the future for having weatherization. There may be more opportunity there actually to coordinate eyes on the structure to be able to assess those roofs. 5 years ago, the roof condition could have changed, and a reminder that weatherization is only allowed with those early funds, LIHEAP or DOE funds, to do roof repairs, whereas now they have resources available to them through utility programs to do roof replacements. So it's a mixed bag, but it gives some indication of activity in those service areas.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Does anybody have any kind of follow-up questions on that? Just to reiterate, it goes in terms of people served. It goes Augusta County, City of Waynesboro, Shenandoah County, Wise County, and City of Franklin. And then in terms of on the wait list, it's City of Franklin, Wise County, Augusta County, City of Waynesboro, and then Shenandoah County.
Yeah, Wise County is second to Augusta in terms of the number of households served.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And this is in
Yes,
I created
right.
a third tab on the same shared spreadsheet that Hannah sent around.
So just one other piece of information. Department of Social Services are major referral sources for the weatherization providers because they automatically improve if they're receiving fuel assistance. So I would think departments of social services would be a duplicative list if you were to reach out to them. That's one reason I thought the weatherization providers were good sources of the information, because they do outreach to community-based organizations. It's not exclusive, but I felt like it was a good first pass.
Thanks. Thank you. In terms of other information.
Sorry, quick question. That's 2016 through today, all those numbers?
Yes. So in terms of other information, Tony, I know you emailed Carrie and I earlier today. I'm happy to share your information or have you share it for the group if that makes sense.
Hannah, whichever you prefer, if you'd like me to just talk briefly about it, I'll be happy to do that.
That'd be great.
So I did speak with the executive director at Wise County Housing Authority, and just to kind of get their feel for how solar would be accepted in that area. And basically, he said he feels as though the residents in Wise County, they're just beginning to grasp the benefits of solar energy. But however, there is currently a group that is meeting, talking with the school system about solar. And he feels that if we can really show the homeowners the benefit, that they would be able to grasp that. Wise County RHA would be happy to partner with this group in any way possible. And I asked them about marketing, how we get the word out to low and moderate income households. And he mentioned that the newspapers in Wise County are almost non-existent, that people do not subscribe to the newspapers. The way they get their message out to their homeowners and their renters is through Facebook. So he would suggest that we use social media. He also believes that they have a great working relationship with local electric companies and believes the county would support any efforts that we have here, including, sending out notices to potential solar applicants. And he also really said that they have some great local solar installers that he could put us in touch with should we need that. Another group I spoke with, the executive director of Blue Ridge Housing Network, once again agrees that a solar energy program would be beneficial, especially if there's a way to provide grant funds or something to really make it more affordable to LMI households. This particular organization, Blue Ridge Network, they currently provide homeownership education, and they partner with Virginia Housing in getting out low interest monies, which it's a subsidy through Spark is what we call it. So they have a list of homeowners that they could, of course, make sure that they were aware of a solar program. They have experience right now in assisting those that need utility help through the CARES funds. They've partnered with United Way in their service area. And also they feel as though the county would be willing to insert information about a solar program in any of their utility bills. And also spoke with Overton McGehee, who most of you know with Habitat Virginia. Of course, they serve the entire Commonwealth through their affiliate programs. And he did mention that the Central Valley Habitat is currently building new homes and installing solar panels on those. He also, gave us some ideas of how we could market availability. Of course, talked about reaching out to employers, social service agencies that Jonica has already mentioned. And even, if we expand in the future, so it's not just those homes going through weatherization, he commented about how Habitat implemented what they called a backpack express. So they sent notifications to parents through their children, sending those notices home in their backpacks. So that's all I had to share with you today.
That's great. That's really interesting, Tony. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions on that? I'll briefly say, as those board members know who attended the IOU consultation, we asked both ODP and APCO about how they reach out to their customers in their service areas. It seems like for ODP, it's primarily online. I should say exclusively online. And it seems like they are open to doing, hearing other ways to do so, and they could potentially be open to having a partnership. But that's really what they're focused on right now. And APCO also has strong community relations, but does primarily rely on the internet to tell people about their programs. And that would be kind of some data points for Wise County. I know Casey Wiley. Yeah.
I would just add that by internet, and by it's just on websites. Like, so
Yes.
it's not like they're not emailing customers or any other sort of advertising outreach on the webs. It's just sort of information that's up on their websites.
Right. And it's not, and they don't, it sounded like they don't do mailings in the bills or anything like that either. I see that Casey Bliley also has something to share. Casey, do you want to go?
Sure, I'll jump in here. With number one, I want to thank you guys in the marketing and outreach committee for really kind of thinking through those questions, which helped immensely in steering these conversations. I reached out to county administrators at the 5 jurisdictions mentioned, and Carrie also provided some additional context. So in addition to the county administrators, there was another contact that we included. Also reached out to Alt Energy and Baseline Solar, and lastly reached out to 2 of the affiliates listed on the spreadsheet there, which were Blue Ridge and Stanton Augusta Waynesboro. Of those folks, Carrie was able to sit in with me on a call with Russ Edwards of Alt Energy, who provided some good feedback, I think, for consideration of the RFP and thinking through some of the parameters and qualifications that we might want to consider, which include, vertical integration, making sure we're attempting to try to get local installers, vertical integration, which is going to ensure, I think, better service with continued maintenance. And also some additional considerations for roof installs over a number of years and also roofing material. They definitely, I think, would be interested in responding and have some good service in most, but not all. It doesn't look like City of Franklin or Wise are currently covered by them, but they might consider how they could. Also a note just about thinking about ensuring that with the state of the current industry, that we would actually have some extended timeframes to make sure that we could actually make sure that once the RFP is distributed, that those installers would really have time to complete those installs. So switching gears here, also was able to connect with Luke Joday, who's Director of Community Development in Waynesboro. And they seem to be very receptive of offering support for such a program. They anticipated being able to support through marketing and outreach via Facebook website and possibly through their housing authority and possibly through the Downtown Association. Of those suggested in-kind services mentioned that you guys compiled, he did anticipate that they would be able to utilize all of those. Was not familiar with any solar tax exemption, but anticipates that could be passed along with an incentive, and sounded really open to exploring fast track permitting, additional fee waivers, whatever that they could do there on the permitting side too. I have heard back from Stanton Augusta Waynesboro, but I have not yet connected with them, and I did not hear back from those others, which outreach was completed just via email. I can't hear you, Hannah.
Sorry, I was on mute that time. Obviously having issues on Monday. Thank you, Casey, so much for doing all of that. I guess kind of one to summarize, did you have a sense of kind of more responsiveness from one area versus another, or any general kind of takeaways?
Just of those served, it did sound like there was a strong overlap with the intended working families and income restrictions that we are hoping to address with such a program. So again, Waynesboro, Luke Joday seemed to be, again, very receptive and was very quick to respond and wanted to set up a time to talk.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to share or report out at this point?
I think it's accurate to say that we've not yet made contact with the City of Franklin's Franklin Municipal Power and Light, so their municipal utility, And I don't think that contact has been made yet with Shenandoah Valley Electric Cooperative. So in terms of the utilities in some of these areas and, you know, however they're handling net metering or other policies, that should be sort of top of our list. And I can volunteer to take the city of Franklin unless someone else would like to sort of speak for that in terms of reaching out to the municipal utility. And then wondering if either of our co-op folks or any others would want to reach out to Shenandoah Valley
Yeah,
Electric.
I had signed up for them, Carrie, so I'm happy to do it if you will. Can you and I talk maybe later this week or next?
Yes, later this week. I'm out next week, just FYI.
All right. I'll shoot you an email, but yes, I'm happy to take Shen Valley. And you may want to consider talking to Tom Dick. He might be able to point you in the right direction in terms of who to contact at Franklin.
Great. Yes, I have his business card on my desk. Thank you.
If I could just interject one other thing that's, I think, worth mentioning, but not necessarily tied to the jurisdictions that we were looking with, is that Ross Edwards of All Energy did suggest that we consider Joe Morrison with Bark in the Lexington area, as they've done some work in this space as well. I don't know if anyone has context there.
I'm sorry, did you say Joe Morrison with?
Bark, B-A-R-K.
Okay.
And I didn't get a explanation of that acronym there, but
Yes,
I
I
was just taking
thought I
notes.
heard Bark, and I thought you might be referring to the co-op. And
He was BARC. Yeah.
Thank you.
oh yes, BARC. Yes, you can, if you want to talk with me offline, we can get you connected over there too. BARC, it stands for Bath and Rockingham Counties, I think.
This is Susan Cruz. I was hoping to sign up for a bunch of actual residents, and I did an extensive search in my own database to try and find residents from these areas that have been identified and did not have any luck. And I'm wondering, I'm still very willing to reach out to residents. If anyone else has, resident contacts in these areas, I would be really happy to make those phone calls on behalf of the board. I simply lack people to call.
One thought I just had would be maybe somebody could reach out to Appalachian Voices down in Southwest and Wise County. I don't know, Susan, if you know people there.
Yeah, I know a few people over there.
Yeah, that could be helpful maybe, because
I work there, so Hannah's sort of teasing me a little bit, but yes, good idea.
That's a great idea. And I just met one of the organizers in Wise, and he was definitely very interested in this.
Oh, great. Yeah, that would be great. Because I think they would have a sense of like how to reach out, and they've just, done a lot down there.
So I'm curious, is there an idea of the number per jurisdictions that you're trying to do in order to get some kind of information, or is it a matter of outreach and trying to narrow the 5 down to a smaller number? Because in the end, the number that you identify, you're going to have a fallout rate for various reasons. And it does seem to me to have a larger number of jurisdictions is better in some ways. I think it makes outreach, maybe a little more spread out, but what's behind trying to narrow the number of jurisdictions?
I'm happy to take this question, and then maybe Carrie or Nate, you can dive in. But I think initially it was really we want to focus the outreach to a smaller area. Everybody, it's going to be open to everybody across Virginia, but I think the thought was that by narrowing the concentration where we're really focused on outreach, it would be easier to really understand the impact we're making. That's my understanding. I don't know, Nate, if that's right, but you and Carrie can take it from there.
Yeah, that's correct. One of the models that we're sort of building off of is a Solarize-esque type model where there's focused marketing and promotion and customer acquisition that can come along with that to really reduce some of those soft costs associated. So we were originally thinking of partnering with a small number, perhaps 2 or 3 municipalities or counties, but 2 or 3 localities. That said, your point is well taken, and since we did our analysis, the budget has actually expanded for what we were thinking, and so it may well make sense to look at a number more like 5. So so I think your point's well taken.
Yeah, I think that covers it. But when you are thinking about doing outreach to community-based organizations, housing providers, the localities, the utilities, and you replicate that across all the localities, knowing that each of them has probably a unique set of stakeholders in all of those categories. It does start to you have to think about that balance of ratios of where you're investing your resources. And ultimately, like you say, you're looking to get the residential household at the end of the day. And so we can do focused outreach in maybe 3 or so localities, and know that there will also be hopefully media and other ways that others will find out about the program. They will self-select, and they will understand that they have already gone through a weatherization program, and they will find the pathway to apply. And so I think we need to have that balance of making it both accessible for anyone who is eligible to apply, and use some of those channels to market to reach all of them, and then also do a more targeted, focused marketing in I don't think 5 is too many, but 3 may be a little bit more manageable.
Thank you.
And I wanted to speak to the question around residential outreach, because I do think that is sort of a whole other level of very necessary outreach and communication. And there are so many different pathways that we could take to reach those individuals. And so I think it's a good point, Susan, in terms of wanting to do it and needing to do it. And I think I'd be happy to speak with you offline about that in terms of talking through some different approaches, and reaching out to partner organizations like Appalachian Voices, or even putting some communications out to listservs like the Solar United Neighbors, for example. So I'd certainly be happy to help you with that. And I think it deserves sort of its own strategic planning, if you will, around connecting with individual households, especially if they're in a lower income bracket in Virginia.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's brainstorm offline. I'm in.
Well, I just want to give anybody else an opportunity right now to ask any questions or share any additional information you may have on this point before we kind of move on to the next section.
Just one quick comment. I think an advantage of weatherization provider that has already provided outreach to potential residents have that credibility around having, if they've already provided a service. Weatherization is free. People sometimes are disbelieving about that. So it gives you an in, and I'm not trying to make it an exclusive club, but I do think a reach out from those organizations back to somebody they've already dealt with and actually provided a service makes a whole lot of sense. It's also my feeling that we're going to need a bigger universe than just that population. So don't hear me saying I think it ought to be exclusive. I just think what we find with weatherization referrals, the best referral is a community referral or someone that's been provided that service and talks to friends. That word travels like lightning and is more valuable to us in terms of the outreach than any other. It's a friend or a family member that's received a service and refers somebody else.
Thank you, Jonica. On that note, I think thank you everybody for reaching out and doing this stakeholder outreach and coming back and telling us what you've heard. I think it's really helpful and valuable. So thank you for that. Much appreciated. With that, I think I'll turn it over to Carrie and to kind of deal with the next section about the RFP.
Yes, and we have our friends at the Clean Energy States Alliance, Nate Hausman and Wafame Elamine here as well. And as Hannah sent out by email earlier today, acknowledgement that this meeting today was originally scheduled with the intention of going through the RFP and presenting to you all the work that's been done to date, and then you would have that information and you would be able to send your specific recommendations back to Virginia Energy or the board in terms of what really needs to be included in a final RFP that you would then review in December. And I want to be perfectly clear that we're still working forward on the RFP. We're making progress on those details. However, as we engaged with our Virginia contract officer who's on the procurement team and had some questions that came up from both the procurement side as well as recommendations to sort of look into the details of the roles and responsibilities and the logistics around conducting public meetings and Freedom of Information Act, as well as conflict of interest and the Ethics Council. These are all questions that started to get raised in terms of having the full board have access to a draft RFP and to review that RFP in a public forum. At the end of the day, this is ultimately Virginia Energy contract that will be released, through our RFP process. So we had to kind of back up a little bit and pause our original plan in terms of providing you all with the full RFP for review. And I'm looking at some of, our folks in other public agencies or quasi-public agencies who probably understand, what we're referring to, all the details of acts of a public body. And this is also, I think, something that we have a little bit less experience with at Virginia Energy in terms of precedent of a board having very close oversight into the development of a program that involves the launch of an RFP. So typically our board arrangements are a little bit more advisory at a higher level, and the agency is executing the programs and the day-to-day functions of those contracts. The other component here is, I think, as you all know, and I hope you do know this information, but I'll say it again, the dollars that we have from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act are federal dollars that Virginia Energy intends to, help fund this program, and unfortunately, those dollars are not able to go through the formal state treasury fund with a capital F. And so those funds are supporting a pilot program that we are, launching with the anticipation of it being looking very similar to and in parallel to the LMI loan and rebate, LMI solar loan and rebate program or fund. So those are two elements of, kind of this consideration in terms of the board's role as an advisory group to Virginia Energy and the board's role in overseeing the capital F fund, but the fact that we're using dollars that aren't going through that fund. Okay, so I'll just pause there and see if there's any questions. I know I shared quite a bit of information and it may be slightly different from your own expectations. It is our expectation that we'll continue to get the board's advice on this. And I'm hoping to get within the next couple of days or week or so more clarity and direction from our representative from the Attorney General's office, as well as public procurement, so that, if there are disclosure forms that you all would need to sign to then participate in the process, or if we need to go into executive closed session, or if there are, ways that we can work this forward together, we can do so. Hopefully we'll have more information for you all within the next couple of weeks. So I'll just pause there. We have more information that we want to kind of share with you in terms of the general update on the RFP and some specific program details or considerations. And I'll look to Nate to kind of guide us through some of those. But are there any questions from the board? I'll also say anyone is welcome to contact me directly offline. I'm available anytime. Okay, hearing nothing. With that, Nate, do you want to walk through, we had a conversation a little earlier today, and so talking through some of the elements of the intention of the RFP and some of the dollars that we'll be using. So specifically, we have last year's appropriation for this program was $200,000. This year's fiscal year appropriation is $300,000. So combining those together is $500,000, $500,000 that can be used towards the LMI solar program. Again, this is not going to be deposited into the state treasury as they are ERA dollars. And so we'll be using those with our state energy office authority. And one of the elements around the RFP is talking about savings guarantees or other considerations that we want to ensure that there is some element of economic benefit to the customer, and mechanisms that we may be considering to ensure that that either can be met or that the partner, the respondents to the RFP understand that they have certain dollars that can be used as a loan loss reserve, for example. So Nate, do you want to talk a little bit more about this specifically?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, and without going into any sort of detail, I think we've already discussed that the solicitation is going to be open-ended in terms of its program structure, open-ended in terms of the sort of solar financing that will ask respondents to propose. And as Carrie said, one of the challenges that has emerged with this is how to ensure savings guarantees for low and moderate income customers on a continuing basis. So low income customers, as we all know, can't afford to any kind of risk of loss. Of course, that could be devastating for anybody, but particularly devastating for a low and moderate income customer, and could injure both the customer, but also the aims and the future of the program. So we want to ensure that there's bill savings on a continuing basis, sort of throughout the lifespan of the solar contract, to provide some meaningful savings. So, so specifically, one of the ways to make that happen, we thought about that, and one way you could do that would be to rely on a solar provider for some kind of projection of customer savings. But our fear there is that it could be easily distorted with faulty assumptions or otherwise subject to gaming. So we do have some concerns around that. On the other hand, if there's not that kind of guarantee, I mean, if there is a programmatic guarantee, what happens if customers dramatically increase their load after a solar installation? Obviously that changes the savings that they might see. So as we thought about this, one way, of course, would, I think, to be ground sort of any kind of savings guarantee in present day electricity load assumptions for a residence. But we also realize that this could be an area where a loan loss reserve could really come into play, where a state would essentially guarantee the savings. So the low and moderate income customer wouldn't be at a loss if for example, the solar company dissolved, or if there's some kind of other event that prevented savings from being realized over the course of a contract. So as we proceeded, we've become more and more clear that a loan loss reserve could be a helpful tool in this respect, and wanted to give you sort of a heads up that the solicitation that we're drafting may contemplate the possibility of a loan loss reserve it would be administered by Virginia Energy, and in all likelihood it would be left up to the respondents to propose how that would work, how much precisely funding with a cap would be set aside for it, and what conditions would trigger the payout of that loan loss reserve fund, essentially what it would backstop against. So since that was an element, I know we've discussed it, but a little bit, but it wasn't really part of CESA's presentations in any meaningful way before. I wanted to alert you to that. So I'll pull up and see if there's questions.
Nate, this is Tony Ostrowski. Just curious as to the amount of money you think would be needed to capitalize that loan loss reserve.
That's a great question, Tony. I'm not sure. We probably, so again, I think what we do is structure it for respondents to actually provide information, because I think it would depend a little bit on exactly what that fund is backstopping and what conditions it might backstop. I can tell you, ballpark, we're thinking $100,000, something in that range. But we haven't. I'll be honest with you that we haven't really crunched the numbers in a meaningful way, and so I think this is an area where if there was any input on this particular topic, that would be helpful to know.
Thank you.
The other thing I'll say is that, such a loan loss reserve would have to, I mean, we're talking about, 20-year contracts potentially. So we'd be talking about a long life to that fund, and when those potential payouts could occur.
Thanks, Nate.
I will say Virginia Energy has administered loan loss reserve funds in the past, and that's one of the reasons why we have ERA dollars that recycled back to us, because that loan period you know, those dollars then became available. So you know, they would not be, they would be tied up for that period, but then they would come back to us in terms of being able to be used at a later date, though much later in this case. And I see we have some other staff. Bettina Bergu, I see, is on the line, and Grant Cronenberg is also on the line. So I'm not sure if we had a chance to introduce folks. So if there's any additional comments to what we've presented so far from staff, I would welcome folks to add in if they're able to, or have anything else to add. And I don't know, Erin, if they are presenters, if they're able to unmute themselves.
Hey, this is Bettina. Looks like I can. I don't have anything to add, and thanks for giving me the opportunity just to tell folks that I'm here, and sorry that I am late.
No worries.
And this is Grant. I don't have anything in particular to add. I'll just reiterate, like Carrie said, that the OAG is looking at some of these legal issues that have come up in the course of the development of the RFP.
Anything else, Hannah, that you want to have us report out on, or you want to add?
No, I think that was it. Nate, I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to add. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. At some point, I could save it for public comment, but I did want to also let folks know that that I've actually accepted a position at a nonprofit called World Resources Institute, and my last day at CISA will be December 3rd. So WAFA May will carry on the torch, and we'll have some support from Melanie Santiago Mosier, who some of you may know as well, who recently joined our staff. So so I just wanted to say it's been great working with you. If I don't speak to you or see you again, but the world is small too, so it's very possible our paths will cross in my new position.
That's great. Congrats, Nate. And it was really nice to work with you. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. Really value it. And I know we're left in good hands. WAFA May is excellent, so no fears. But thank you so much for your work. I guess at this point, we'll open it up for public comment. I don't know if there are any members of the public on. There is a Christine Noonan. Only name I don't recognize.
Hi, this is Christine Noonan. I don't have any comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I think, Hannah, I see Catherine's on the phone. I'm assuming that's Catherine Bond.
This is Catherine. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, Catherine.
I don't have anything else to add. Just appreciate the discussion and was typing in the chat as you called on me. Just congratulations to Nate. WRI has a great reputation, and I'm sure you'll continue your great work there. And we'll look forward to working with WAFA May and others. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. In terms of, so I guess with that, I'll close public comment. Does that make sense? Okay. So in terms of next steps and other kind of board business, I do want to mention that the annual report needs to get done. And I think I'll take a first stab at putting together an outline and talk to Carrie about that. And then I may be reaching out to individuals on the board to help kind of fill in certain discrete pieces so that we can have a fulsome and accurate depiction of our work from the last year. Please let me know if you would like to volunteer to do anything on the annual report or have any questions or concerns on that front. But I hope to start working on that soon so we can start reviewing it so we can approve it in December. Yeah.
One administrative note about that, as we transitioned from our old website to our new website, we had to consolidate a lot of the information. And so if there are materials from past meetings or events that you are looking for and you cannot find them, just let me know and I can provide them.
That's great. That'll be helpful, Carrie. Thank you. And then Carrie, I guess we'll just rely on you for an update on the RFP and how the board can be involved and to what extent.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Our next meeting then is just I'm just going to pull up my calendar to make sure I got it right. It is December 15th from 3 to 5 in person. And do we have a location for that yet, Carrie?
We don't, I believe, it was expressed that we should continue to meet in Richmond to accommodate the majority of individuals. And so if that is still the case, just let me know and I'm happy to find if the library is still available, if people have that, if that location is still convenient or okay, let me know if that poses an issue for anyone. I recognize it's not convenient for everybody. So I'll take your all's direction in terms of where we should be conducting that meeting. Sorry for my dog.
Does anybody have an objection to doing it at the library in Richmond? Or a suggestion of another location? Well, Carrie, if it's easy, then why don't we just do that?
Okay.
Unless you have another thought at some point.
No, I think that I'm happy to reserve it, and hopefully in 2022 we can find some other locations across the state to make travel sort of equitable and go into different parts of the state where we're also hoping to serve those communities.
Sounds great. Any other matters to discuss or open items? Okay. Well, on that note, if I just want to say thank you for attending the meeting, and I will hopefully be reaching out to some of you on the annual report over the next week. And if not, then immediately following Thanksgiving. So anyway, thanks so much, and we will talk soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanksgiving, you guys. Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Nate, congratulations.